Number 10. Somali Ma'am Foundation. A public figure is a very powerful thing. Someone a cause can really rally behind. Somali Ma'am was just that for women and girls who were forced into the sex trafficking industry. Ma'am used her own heartbreaking story of sexual slavery and torture to rally those behind her and help other girls who are forced into that same position. She collected millions of dollars from all around the world to help her cause. The thing is, many began to doubt that she ever experienced any of those things for herself. In fact, it was proven that she hadn't. All her stories were gross misrepresentation and complete fiction. Even some of the girls she paraded around as those she helped admitted that they'd been telling fabricated stories under Ma'am's instruction. This destroyed both her reputation and the reputation of the SMF, forcing them to close down since they could not recover from the controversies surrounding their supposed champion. Number 9. Angel Food Ministries. For some people, it can be hard to make ends meet financially, and harder still to afford good food for themselves and their families. Angel Food Ministries aim to help these people by purchasing food in bulk and selling it much cheaper through volunteers and churches. Sounds like a noble cause, especially since the founder, Joe Wingo, was a pastor at their main church of operations. He even received a low-interest loan of $7 million from the USDA to help. Despite this, after 17 years of operation, the Wingo family shut down the charity. 2 months later, it was discovered that the family was using charity money for personal use, such as cars, sporting goods, electronics, and even putting down a down payment on a jet, which they, of course, claimed was for the charity. They attempted to hide their tracks by paying back what they took, but they ended up trying to use the new donations to hide the misplaced old donations, making the books look even worse. Seems this pastor couldn't resist the temptation of the almighty dollar. Number 8. Central Asia Institute. Who would think that the writer of a New York Times bestseller would turn into a schemer? Greg Mortensen, writer of The 3 Cups of Tea and Stones into Schools, founded Central Asia Institute, a charity that was supposed to help build schools and provide education in Central Asia. However, people eventually noticed that Mortensen used charity funds to help promote his book, and never repaid those funds with his revenue. In fact, he spent around $1.7 million of the charity's money to help promote his book, covering fees for events, filmings, professional consultants, and travel. Mortensen claimed that this was part of his charity work, and that the books were related to the charity itself, so he was told it was completely fine. The IRS thought differently. Investigations into the school's CAI claimed to help revealed that many were completely empty, not even funded by CAI or built by someone else altogether. When all is said and done, Mortensen could owe more than $7.2 million for excessive benefits received during 2006, 2007, and 2009. But hey, at least those empty schools that he did build are shelters, so that's a positive. Number 7. Covenant House. Probably everyone has thought of running away at one time in their life, whether it be a childish act or a teenage phase. But for those who do run away, the first question on their mind is usually, where do I go now? Covenant House, founded by Father Bruce Ritter, was meant to be the answer to that question, a shelter for homeless teens. It was actually started in Ritter's apartment, but quickly grew into a well-regarded charity and got support from all over the country. However, rumors were circulating around the charity for years, saying that there may be relations between Ritter and the residents of Covenant House. Eventually, the scandal went public and Ritter resigned. Of course, that didn't stop people from investigating, and it was discovered that Ritter had sexual relations with 15 of the teens he sheltered, and made sexual advances towards many more. Along with that, there were also a few minor financial oddities at the Covenant House, but they weren't enough to provoke legal action. It's unknown whether the whole idea of Covenant House was centered around sleeping with young teens from the start of it, or if it developed later on. But either way, Father Ritter really wasn't helping that stereotype. Number 6. United Way of America. The United Way of America has gone through many names and even more CEOs. But the most scandalous one happened while the company, now known as United Way Worldwide, was under the control of William Aramani. Aramani, along with conspirators Thomas Merlo and Stephen Polachak, siphoned as much as $1.2 million out of the charity's funding to use for themselves. Some of these uses were pretty strange, such as 59-year-old Aramani attempting to woo a 17-year-old girl, in total spending nearly $450,000 on her alone. Of course, the three of them also used the money to live like kings, going on trips around the world and renovating their homes. The trio was finally caught in 1995, and the United Way of America became one of the first charities to make people question what the money was actually being used for, and how genuine the people running the show actually were. Number 5. Hale House. Do you ever think of leaving something behind for your child, maybe a special toy or an heirloom, knowing that there is always the risk that they'll break it or not care about it altogether? This very thing happened to Hale House, a charity co-founded by Clara Hale to help children touched by poverty, drug abuse, and AIDS. Clara was eventually dubbed Mother Hale for her affection and success in helping young ones. Clara's daughter, Lorraine Hale, inherited Hale House and was tasked to continue her mother's legacy. Instead, she destroyed its image entirely. Lorraine and her husband, Jesse DeVore, used the money for personal and extravagant spending. Among their many charity-funded splurges, they had an art collection valued at almost $500,000 in Lorraine's personal office. They also built a giant $400,000 bronze statue of Mother Hale, and even used funds to pay for their own property taxes. By 2002, Hale and DeVore had taken nearly $1 million from their organization. One of the worst aspects of this fraud is that neither really cared about the cause, and only continued to host the charity to support their income. It's reported that they referred to the children they cared for as cash cows. Talk about ruining the family business. Number 4. New Era. Philanthropist and entrepreneur John Bennett Jr. founded the Foundation for New Era Philanthropy, or simply New Era, in 1989. The foundation took donations from charities, then after a holding period, gave double that amount back. The double being from donors. Sounds fishy? Yeah, cause it was. The New Era was nothing more than a scam and a tax haven. Charities like the Red Cross, World Vision, and Nature Conservancy were caught in this Ponzi scheme. Bennett created fake board meetings, numbers, and even used his reputation as a leading Christian figure to ease suspicions. By the end, victims lost $135 million to his scheme, which included charities and average people alike. Originally, he took new donor money and paid the old donors back, but this only worked for about 5.5 years. He was only caught because he eventually ran out of money and admitted his scheme, that was, after using about $7 million for personal pleasures. Honestly, this earns its place just for the fact that actual charities lost their money to this supposed deal. Number 3. Cancer Fund of America. Cancer is a big hit when it comes to charities. There are dozens of charities dedicated to aiding those who suffer from it and finding a cure. When most people hear of the painful treatment and diagnosis of cancer, they want to help. And James Reynolds Sr. capitalized on this. After being forced out of a job at the American Cancer Society, Reynolds founded the Cancer Fund of America in 1987. Using a variety of fundraising tactics, he managed to get CFA's annual contributions to $10.5 million by its 4th year. Would you be surprised to hear that none of that went towards those with cancer? Because, well, it didn't. The money was used on professional fundraisers and Reynolds' family to give them salaries, benefits, and anything that they really would need. Somehow, even with its low program spending and high fundraising costs, it continued on only by paying its fines. This even spawned several other charities run by Reynolds' family, each of which were shams as well. Funnily enough, they all had something to do with cancer research. Between 2002 and 2011, 4 new charities popped up with the same idea as the first, one even run by his son, James Reynolds Jr. Like father, like son, I guess. Number 2. The United States Navy Veterans Association. Everyone wants to support veterans. They fight for their country's rights and freedom. John Donald Cody, aka Bobby Thompson, formed the United States Navy Veterans Association with the goal of raising money for ex-military men to help them out after they leave the service. The charity claimed to have been around since 1927 with dozens of chapters all around the United States. When someone donates, a letter from a veteran was sent to the donor, thanking them for their donation. However, when examined, it turned out that there was no organization, no employees, and no veterans. Everything was being run by a single man in a Florida duplex named Bobby Thompson. By the time he was discovered, he had accepted almost $100 million over a 7-year period. He actually managed to escape and live on the run for some time, before being captured and found out to be John Donald Cody, who was a lawyer and a former Army intelligence officer. His background explained how he managed to keep going for 7 years. Much of that time was bought through manipulation and bribery. Still, the thought that this man could go from protecting his fellow countrymen to scamming donors sounds like something out of a Scooby-Doo short. Number 1. National Children's Leukemia Foundation. There's nothing worse than losing a child. It can be a powerful drive to start an organization to help other parents and children avoid suffering the same pain. This is what Zvi Shore, or Steve Shore, stated as he founded the National Children's Leukemia Foundation in 1991. Shore even claimed he had ways to help treat leukemia, such as bone marrow registry, banking umbilical cord blood, and even starting his own cancer research center. His passion and ideas earned him millions of dollars in donations over the more than 20 years the NCLF operated. But that's the thing. None of these programs ever existed. They were nothing more than ideas, despite the non-existence of anything worth investing in. Shore managed to make it seem like he was doing everything he could. Patents were filed, documents were forged, and he somehow managed to operate for years without any oversight from anyone. Even when Shore was finally caught, he had already signed off his company to someone else in an attempt to avoid legal action. The most the foundation ever did was buy a laptop for someone and give another trip to Disney World. That's it. All other funds went to Shore. Thankfully, when everything was settled in court, all of his money was taken away from him. It's impressive how he managed to keep this running until late 2015, which only brings up the question what that determination could have accomplished if actually used for something helpful.